A huge issue that is getting buried by all of the noise in Washington right now. It's called the census, and people tend to tune out when they hear about it. But Stacey Abrams, please explain why it is imperative that people pay attention to this.
Thank you. So when I did not become governor, I went through the stages of grief very quickly. I added a new stage called plotting. And
Good stage.
I started figuring out, so if I wasn't going to have that job, what work could I do? And the two issues that were top of mind for me, one is fighting voter suppression, because, you know, it was kind of top of mind. But the second was the census, because the census undergirds almost every political and civic decision we make. It allocates $1.5 trillion every year, based solely on the numbers collected this year. The issue is that for the first time in recent memory, we have an administration that has tried to underfund the census. And because of that, we are going to have a difficult time counting the hardest to reach populations, rural communities, children, people of color, immigrants. And the reality is the census is not a count of citizens. It's a count of the people who live in America. If you're on a tourist visa, you're good. Everyone else gets counted. If people of color do not get counted at the rates they should, and that's been part of the challenge, we will lose $8 billion. Black communities will lose $3.3 billion. The Hispanic community will lose almost $4.4 billion. Asian Pacific Islanders will lose almost $600 million. Native Americans and Native Alaskans will lose almost $200 million every year. Those are dollars that don't go into your schools, don't go into your hospitals, don't go into your roads. Those are the dollars that make up your life. And the reality is the monies don't disappear. They just go to the people who get overcounted, which tend to be wealthier white communities. And so those who do well will do better, and those who do poorly will do worse. The solution is to answer the census. The census is taken every 10 years, but once they do it, it's done for the next 10 years. If you don't get counted, you do not count. But here are the three things I want people to know. Number one, the census is going to be 80% online this year. That's going to be hard, especially for rural communities, regardless of your race, because between 24 and 40% of Americans do not have access to the internet. So one of the things we've done through my organization, Fair Count, is that we are putting hotspots in 150 locations in Georgia, in rural communities across the state, because we want people to participate. If you live in a community where it's hard to get the internet, start asking the people in your community to solve that problem. We have to solve it before the census happens. Number two, people are afraid because of the citizenship question. That was one of the attempts that was actually pioneered by Thomas Hofeller, who is a conservative who really figured out how to weaponize the census and said that if you did not count non-citizens, then it would lead to a more white, Republican, non-Hispanic population, which isn't who we are. The reality is, number one, the citizenship question isn't on there. And if you want to make sure that the person knocking on your door isn't ICE, answer the census online, fill it out on paper, make the phone call. Because if you answer the census, when somebody knocks on your door, you know it's not the census, so you just don't answer the door. Number three, people who are afraid that if you answer the census, they'll be able to find you because you have a warrant, because you owe somebody money, whatever. If you have a light bill or a cell phone, they know how to find you.
Already.
So you might as well
answer the census so you can get your money and your political power. Because that's how we decide congressional leaders, how we decide school board members, how we decide every level of political power. Answer the census 2020 and get your money and be counted.
Okay. Thanks to Stacey Abrams. We've got a new book coming out in June called Our Time Is Now. So be sure to be on the lookout for that. And